Governing the Party, How the CPC Works, compiled by Chuntao. Chapter 4, Theoretical Innovation and Guidance. Constantly improving theoretical innovation and guidance has played a significant role for the CPC to successfully run itself. The theories of the CPC are the theoretical system guiding all the practices of the party and the theoretical basis, ensuring the building of the party in political understanding, ideology, organizations, and conduct. The practice of running the party in the past 95 years has been a process of constantly improving theoretical innovation and guidance, and a process of holding high the correct banner of theories, constantly advancing the adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions, freeing the mind, progressing with the times, and building a learning-oriented party. The banner represents orientation and image. At the report to the 15th CPC National Congress, Jiang Zemin said,
"The issue of the banner is of the utmost importance. The banner represents our orientation and image, firmly adhering to the line formulated since the third plenary session of the 11th Central Committee, means firmly upholding the banner of Deng Xiaoping theory."
Orientation is the road and target a political party chooses, while image is what the party demonstrates to the outside and how it is evaluated by the outside. They together reflect the guiding thoughts of a political party. In conclusion, the essence of the issue of banner is an issue of the CPC's guiding thoughts, jointly reflected by orientation and image, which determines that the issue of the banner is of the utmost importance. After Marxism was introduced to China, the earliest communists in China attached great importance to setting and upholding the theoretical banner. After the New Culture movement started on May 4, 1919, advanced Chinese intellectuals decisively selected Marxism as their banner for guidance and revolutionary struggle. When establishing the belief in Marxism, Mao Zedong told the other comrades of the Xinmin Institute to unite under the banner of Marxism. He once compared systematic theory to a banner and said that only after the banner was established could the comrades be guided for fighting. However, while the earliest communists in China established Marxism as their banner, Hu Shi denied in public the significance of the issue of the banner. In an article published on July 20, 1918, he maintained, from the point of pragmatism, that comrades should study questions more but discuss theories less. It was obvious that, in his view, China could be developed without a banner or an orientation. After reading Hu's article, Li Dajiao, a Marxist, wrote an article to refute him. Li thought we should both study questions in reality and spread systematic theories as an ideal, which were not mutually exclusive but would enhance each other. Chen Duxiu later published more articles in New Youth magazine to support Li and further criticize the pragmatic view of Hu Shi. He stressed that the issue of systematic theory was an issue of orientation. Without a clear orientation, a boat would either strike rocks or move back. The CPC also attached great importance to maintaining the banner during the War of Resistance against Japan. In 1939, the CPC and the Kuomintang, KMT, launched a debate on the three principles of the people: nationalism, democracy, and the people's livelihood, put forward by Dr. Sun Yat-sen. A KMT writer said that after adapting to Chinese conditions, Marxism had been totally changed and lost all its features, while the three principles of the people, suited to Chinese conditions, should be the highest principles and standards to guide all the social sciences that China needed. His view aimed at establishing the theoretical banner for the KMT while defaming the CPC's efforts to adapt Marxism to Chinese conditions. Moreover, the KMT leader Chiang Kai-shek also misinterpreted Sun Yat-sen's understanding on traditional culture and called on the KMT to oppose the invasion by foreign cultures and resist the spreading of socialism in China. By using the three principles of the people, the KMT resisted Marxism and the adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions and defended its dictatorial rule in China. Many CPC members, such as Ai Siqi, Wang Jiaxiang, and Wu Liangping, had published articles of refutation. After this debate on the three principles of the people, a primarily complete system of new democratic theory was established, which was the main part of Mao Zedong thought. With the system of the new democratic theory, Mao Zedong thought became mature, and the first leap of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions was realized. Recognizing the significance of the issue of the banner, the CPC has always declared, since its establishment with its theories and political programs, its status as a proletarian party guided by Marxism-Leninism. At the 7th CPC National Congress, held in April to June 1945, Mao Zedong thought, a fruit of Sinicized Marxism, was established as the party's guiding thought. The party constitution adopted at the Congress stated,
"The CPC is guided in all its work by Mao Zedong thought, the doctrine that integrates the theory of Marxism-Leninism with the practice of the Chinese Revolution, and that it is opposed to any dogmatic or empiricist deviations."
In his report on the party, delivered to this party Congress, Liu Shaoqi said,
"Mao Zedong thought is the development of Marxism with regard to the national democratic revolution in the colonial, semi-colonial, and semi-feudal country of the present period. It is an outstanding example of how Marxism is applied to a given nation. It is the duty of every party member to endeavor to learn the fundamentals of Marxism-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought."
A conclusion could be drawn that establishing Mao Zedong thought as the CPC's guiding thought was the common understanding after the rectification movement in Yan'an, and a historic decision based on practice in the 24 years after the CPC was founded. After the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee, during the formation and development of Deng Xiaoping theory and Marxism in contemporary China, party members and officials have increasingly recognized that this theory should be the guiding thought for reform and opening up as well as the modernization drive. In China, how to achieve socialist modernization based on reality is a new task the CPC has been facing since the mid-1950s. Both Marxism-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought provide no ready solutions to this task, so the CPC must continue to make explorations. This road is obviously arduous and rugged. The CPC has made a long detour and paid a heavy price. At the end of 1978, the second generation of central collective leadership with Deng Xiaoping at the core, adhering to the principle of emancipating the mind and seeking truth from facts, put forward to combine the universal truth of Marxism with Chinese conditions, follow our own road, and build socialism with Chinese characteristics. From the end of 1978 to the outset of 1992, Deng fully elaborated a series of basic issues concerning the development path, development stages, basic tasks, development impetus, external conditions, political guarantees, strategic steps, leading force and backing force for socialism with Chinese characteristics, as well as reunification of the motherland. Raising a series of new guidance views, he established the theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics and answered for the first time the question of how to build, consolidate, and develop socialism in China. This is the second historic leap in combining Marxism with Chinese conditions. For this purpose, the 12th CPC National Congress decided to hold high the banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Guided by this banner, China has seen tremendous changes and made achievements of world interest. After that, the 13th CPC National Congress set forth the concept of building socialism with Chinese characteristics and connected this theory with banner, pointing out that this theory was scientific socialism rooted in present-day China, the ideological basis for the whole party and the whole country, to reach a common understanding and strengthen unity, and the Great Banner to guide our progress. The Congress called on the people of the whole country to unite more closely under the Great Banner of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. The third generation of the Central Collective Leadership, with Jiang Zemin at the core, was formed at the fourth plenary session of the 13th CPC Central Committee. Party members and officials have had a deeper understanding of Deng Xiaoping theory and its historic position. The 14th CPC National Congress raised for the first time the concept of the theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics, put forward by Deng Xiaoping. Summarized in a systematic way, for the first time the main contents and contributions of this theory, and put forward for the first time the goal to arm the party with Deng Xiaoping's theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. The Congress also emphasized that when we talked about the need to study Marxism-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought, we meant that in essence the need to study the theory and that the party and the country must hold high the great banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Since the new century, the CPC Central Committee has paid even more attention to the issue of the banner. The 18th CPC National Congress further elaborated the path, the system of theories and the essence of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and the relations among the three parts. Expanding the essence of the banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics from one path, one system of theories, summarized by the 17th CPC National Congress, to one path, one system of theories, and one social system, marked a new height of the CPC's understanding of the laws of socialist construction. That the CPC sets great store by the banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics reflects the choice of history and the people. From the Opium War to the beginning of the 20th century, Chinese people struggled over saving the country and rejuvenating the Chinese nation. During this period, various attempts Chinese people made, such as the Westernization movement, the Reform movement of 1898, and the Revolution of 1911, all failed, proving that the Western capitalist road wouldn't work in China. Tremendous changes took place until the CPC found Marxism. For this reason, the CPC established Mao Zedong thought, which integrated Marxism-Leninism with the practice of the Chinese Revolution, as the banner during the Democratic Revolution. With this banner, the CPC achieved victory in the new democratic revolution, founded the People's Republic of China, and built a socialist society. However, it had experienced setbacks on the road of socialist construction for lack of deep understanding of what is socialism and how to build it. After the third plenary session of the 11th Central Committee, the party, through a thorough review of history, both positive and negative sides, and a scientific analysis of basic national conditions, proposed to follow our own road and build socialism with Chinese characteristics. This is the theme of both theories and practice for the CPC in the new period. After the reform and opening up for 30-plus years, China has made development achievements of world interest. The economy has grown rapidly. People's livelihoods have improved remarkably. Socialist democracy has advanced step by step. Great progress has been made in culture, education, sports, and healthcare. National defense has strengthened. Military strength has increased. And significant achievements have been made in foreign affairs. All these have created the China miracle. Practice proves that the path, theory, and system of socialism with Chinese characteristics are unprecedented in the histories of Marxist development and world socialist development. They are the scientific theories and correct road created by the Chinese people, led by the CPC, through combining basic tenets of Marxism with Chinese conditions, and they will serve as a fundamental guarantee to make China prosperous and strong, rejuvenate the nation, bring happiness to the Chinese people, and build a harmonious society. Jiang Zemin once summarized the development process of the CPC's guiding thoughts as follows. In the early period after the CPC was founded, it solemnly established Marxism-Leninism as its banner. After the rectification movement in Yan'an and the 7th CPC National Congress, it solemnly added Mao Zedong thought, which integrates the theory of Marxism-Leninism with the practice of the Chinese Revolution, to its banner. After the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee and the 12th, 13th, and 14th Party Congresses, the party solemnly included Deng Xiaoping's theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics onto its banner. This is the invaluable source of inspiration the CPC has gained with huge costs. The summary of new historic creations made by the CPC and Chinese people, the great banner to develop socialism, and the powerful political soul for national rejuvenation and development. Marxism must be adapted to Chinese conditions. During 95 years of theoretical innovation and development, the CPC not only paid attention to establishing and upholding the theoretical banner, but also emphasized the adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions. Marxism is the basic guiding theory for a proletarian revolution and construction and a scientific worldview and methodology to understand and shape the world. Marxism itself is an extensive and logical scientific system. This means that to supervise its conduct and enforce strict discipline, the CPC must follow the basic theories and requirements of Marxism on party building. However, the CPC didn't blindly apply individual conclusions of Marxism, but combined Marxism with Chinese history and reality to innovate and develop it. This indicates that in China, establishing the guidance of Marxism requires the adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions. Adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions is the necessary demand and result of Chinese social development in modern times. Within the 70 years after the Opium War, the Chinese people finally founded the scientific ideological weapon of Marxism after constant explorations. Mao Zedong once described the process of exploration as follows. For a long time in the course of this resistance movement, that is, for over 70 years from the Opium War of 1840 to the eve of the May 4th movement of 1919, the Chinese people had no ideological weapon with which to defend themselves against imperialism. The salvos of the October Revolution brought us Marxism-Leninism. The October Revolution helped progressives in China, as throughout the world, to adopt the proletarian world outlook as the instrument for studying a nation's destiny and considering anew their own problems. However, finding the ideological weapon of Marxism didn't mean the Chinese people would be able to immediately solve all the problems of the Chinese Revolution. During the process of the Chinese Revolution and construction, the CPC, unable to adapt Marxism to Chinese conditions, several times made leftist or rightist mistakes, some of which even almost ruined the Chinese Revolution and the future of the party. Therefore, during the Yan'an rectification movement, Mao Zedong and the CPC Central Committee published several articles to criticize the tendency of subjectivism and initiate integration of theory with practice. In his report, Reform Our Study, delivered on May 19, 1941, to a cadres meeting in Yan'an, Mao Zedong said about the subjectivist attitude,
"A person studies Marxist-Leninist theory in the abstract and without any aim. He goes to Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin, not to seek the stand, viewpoint, and method with which to solve the theoretical and tactical problems of the Chinese Revolution, but to study theory purely for theory's sake."
Mao thought such a subjectivist attitude was unable to solve the practical problem of the Chinese Revolution because
many comrades seem to study Marxism-Leninism not to meet the needs of revolutionary practice, but purely for the sake of study. Consequently, though they read, they cannot digest. They can only cite odd quotations from Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin in a one-sided manner, but are unable to apply the stand, viewpoint, and method of Marx, Engels, Lenin and Stalin, to the concrete study of China's present conditions and her history, or to the concrete analysis and solution of the problems of the Chinese Revolution.
This reminded us that Chinese revolution and construction could only be guided by Marxism-Leninism, focus on solving the practical problems, and apply the basic principles of Marxism-Leninism to the practice of the Chinese Revolution, in order to generate the theoretical fruits conforming to Chinese reality during the process of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions. Adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions is, of course, the requirement for the CPC to supervise its conduct and enforce discipline. Adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions includes the judgments on the history and the times, as well as a summary of practical experience. Therefore, adaptation of Marxism to Chinese conditions is a prime condition for the CPC to supervise its conduct and enforce discipline. During the process of applying Marxism to Chinese reality, the CPC has made constant contributions to the theory of Marxism, achieved new theoretical fruits, and kept abreast of the times in its guiding thoughts. By doing so, the CPC can maintain its vanguard nature and fulfill its historical responsibilities. During the Democratic Revolution, Mao Zedong set forth opposing book worship and proposed that
victory in China's revolutionary struggle will depend on the Chinese comrades' understanding of Chinese conditions.
He raised the task of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions for the first time in October 1938. He said that any thought, if not integrated with the reality, not necessary to exist and not mastered by the people, would never work, even if it was the best, and even if it was Marxism-Leninism. In his report, The Role of the Chinese Communist Party in the National War, delivered to the 6th plenary session of the 6th CPC Central Committee, he said,
"We can put Marxism into practice only when it is integrated with the specific characteristics of our country and acquires a definite national form. The great strength of Marxism-Leninism lies precisely in its integration with the concrete revolutionary practice of all countries. For the Chinese Communist Party, it is a matter of learning to apply the theory of Marxism-Leninism to the specific circumstances of China. Hence, to apply Marxism concretely in China so that its every manifestation has an indubitably Chinese character, that is, to apply Marxism in the light of China's specific characteristics, becomes a problem which it is urgent for the whole party to understand and solve."
To refute the slander from the KMT and arm the whole party with more systematic theories, Mao stressed in his article, On New Democracy,
"In applying Marxism to China, Chinese communists must fully and properly integrate the universal truth of Marxism with the concrete practice of the Chinese Revolution. Or in other words, the universal truth of Marxism must be combined with specific national characteristics and acquire a definite national form if it is to be useful, and in no circumstances can it be applied subjectively as a mere formula."
When applying Marxism in solving practical problems in China, Mao gave special prominence to summarize the practice of Chinese revolution into creative theoretical fruits, combining innovations in both practice and theory. After the PRC was founded in 1949, the CPC continued the understanding and practice of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions. During this period, China's exploration of a socialist construction road suited to Chinese conditions was connected with the deliberation of new circumstances and new problems emerging in the Soviet Union. At the end of 1955, Mao Zedong keenly raised the problem of taking a warning from the Soviet Union and directly led an extensive campaign of making investigations and hearing reports, making necessary preparations for the formulation of the report to the 8th CPC National Congress and his speech on the 10 major relationships. While the CPC was exploring a development road suited to the country's conditions and thinking about the success and failure of the Soviet model, a secret speech by the Soviet leader Khrushchev, attracted the attention of Mao Zedong and the CPC Central Committee. Between March and April 1956, Mao said on various occasions that Khrushchev's speech, breaking down with blind faith that all about the Soviet Union and Stalin was correct, would be conducive to oppose dogmatism. He required China to no longer blindly copy the Soviet model, but think on our own and integrate basic principles of Marxism-Leninism with the practice of Chinese revolution and socialist construction to explore a road to build socialism in China. He also raised the task of a second integration. The period between early 1956 and the erroneous extension of the anti-rightist movement in 1957 was the golden period for Mao to explore a road of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. With many important achievements, this was also an important period for the formation of the system of theory of socialism with Chinese characteristics. After the reform and opening up policy was adopted, Deng Xiaoping, while leading the work of building socialism with Chinese characteristics, maintained firm understanding of the mission that Marxism must be adapted to Chinese conditions. The reform and opening up in the 1980s and 1990s, such as the system of contracting with each household for production quotas, introducing foreign investment, establishing special economic zones, and a developing commodity economy and a socialist market economy, was realized during the process of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions. Deng Xiaoping said
that we must never go against the basic principles of Marxism. Leninism and Mao Zedong thought is beyond doubt. We must, however, integrate them with reality, analysis, and study actual conditions, and solve practical problems. We have profound faith in Marxism, but we must integrate it with Chinese realities. Only Marxism that is integrated with Chinese realities is the genuine Marxism we need. We must integrate the universal truth of Marxism with the concrete realities of China, blaze a path of our own, and build socialism with Chinese characteristics. That is the basic conclusion we have reached after reviewing our long history.
Guided by these principles, the CPC has achieved further breakthroughs in supervising its conduct and enforcing discipline, and set up the theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. Under new circumstances, since the new century, Jiang Zemin raised the mission again to adapt Marxism to Chinese conditions. For the first time, he listed Mao Zedong thought and Deng Xiaoping theory as Chinese Marxism. He also expanded the essence of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions, which must include the fine philosophy of the Chinese nation and the practical experience of the Chinese communists. As he said at the meeting celebrating the 80-year anniversary of the founding of the CPC,
guided by the collective leadership of the Party Central Committee of the first and second generations, with comrades Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping at the core, respectively, our party persisted in closely combining the basic principles of Marxism-Leninism with China's realities. As a result, Mao Zedong thought and Deng Xiaoping theory came into being. The two great theories constitute Chinese Marxism, which embodies the basic principles of Marxism-Leninism, and the fine philosophy of the Chinese nation, and the practical experience of the Chinese communists.
At the meeting to commemorate the 100th birthday of Deng Xiaoping on August 22, 2004, Hu Jintao said that the party should free up the mind, seek truth from facts, advance with the times, and constantly improve theoretical guidance and innovation. To apply basic principles of Marxism to Chinese conditions and advance theoretical innovation based on practice are the keys to maintain the vitality of Marxism and the decisive factors for the CPC to maintain its vanguard nature and enhance its creative power. The party must explore, understand, and utilize the laws of governing the country, as well as the laws for socialist construction and development of human society, in order to further adapt Marxism to Chinese conditions. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, General Secretary Xi Jinping has delivered several important speeches on theoretical innovation and arming the party with theories, putting forward many new opinions and conclusions, and forming a complete system of theories. This further develops the system of a theory of socialism with Chinese characteristics and represents the latest fruits of adapting Marxism to Chinese conditions. Thus, it can be seen that during the process of theoretical innovation and arming the party with theories in the past 95 years, the CPC, based on the understanding of the basic principles of Marxism and the requirement of social development in China, always emphasizes and requires integration of basic principles of Marxism with Chinese conditions and characteristics of the times, while supervising its conduct and enforcing party discipline. Creating the fruits of Marxist theories with special Chinese features, the CPC has found a road of constant progress. Freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. The party's growth over the past 95 years has been a process of constantly freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. Only through freeing up the mind and advancing with the times can the CPC maintain its vanguard nature and play the exemplary role of party members and officials. Since its establishment, the CPC has ensured its development relying on freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. In modern Chinese history, there are three ideological emancipation movements demonstrating the feature of advancing with the times. As the historic turning point from old democratic revolution to new democratic revolution, the May 4th movement, holding high the banner of science and democracy, promoted the extensive spreading of Marxism-Leninism in China, helped to integrate Marxism-Leninism with Chinese conditions, and accelerated the founding of the CPC, laying ideological and organizational foundations for the coming of the new democratic revolution. In the early 1940s, the Yan'an rectification movement opposed subjectivism, factionalism, and stereotyped party writing, thoroughly criticizing the left and right opportunism mistakes, and established Mao Zedong thought as the party's guiding thought. After the end of the Cultural Revolution, the debate on the criteria of testing truth criticized the mistake of the two whatevers, and freed up people from the mistake, laying theoretical foundations for further integrating Marxism-Leninism with Chinese conditions under new historical circumstances. Since the reform and opening up, the mind of Chinese communists has been further emancipated. The third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee thoroughly rejected the policy of the two whatevers, re-established the ideological line of freeing up the mind and seeking truth from facts, and made the decision to shift work focus to economic development and adopt reform and opening up. This time of an ideological emancipation wave, starting from the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee, acted as another important turning point in the history of the CPC. Since the 1990s, as the Cold War ended, the world has been multipolar, and peace and development have become the theme of the times. This indicates that the CPC can give full play to the superiority of socialism only through freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. Under such conditions, Deng Xiaoping raised the opinion that the chief criterions for judging the success of the socialist modernization drive should be whether it promotes the growth of the productive forces in a socialist society, increases the overall strength of the socialist state, and raises living standards, which became the theme of this time of ideological emancipation movement. Soon after that, the 14th CPC National Congress decided that the goal for economic reform was to establish a socialist market economy, directing a new orientation for this time of ideological emancipation movement. The 15th CPC National Congress, held in September 1997, called upon all the party members to advance the socialist modernization drive into the new century and established Deng Xiaoping theory as the party's guiding thought. indicating that the CPC would be more conscious in using this theory to advance the cause of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. Then, at the turn of the century, Jiang Zemin set forth the important thought of the three represents, providing development opportunities for party building in the new century. The process for the CPC to supervise its conduct and enforce party discipline is also a process of freeing up the mind and advancing with the times realized through the struggle against dogmatism, as well as blindly applying resolutions of the Communist International and the experience of the Soviet Union, although the process is not smooth. In the early period after the CPC was founded, Chen Duxiu, a major leader of the party at that time, had his own understanding on how to lead the Chinese Revolution. However, the CPC was in its infancy, and Chen Duxiu and other leaders of the party had no adequate preparations in theory and practice, so they were unable to properly solve various major problems in theory and practice during the Chinese Revolution by independently utilizing Marxism-Leninism. They had to accept and carry out guidance from such guidance was not always correct. For instance, in the later period of the Communist International and the Soviet Communist Party. However, the Great Revolution, when China was at a crucial moment of revolution, guidance from the Communist International and the Soviet Communist Party was mainly incorrect. But Chen was unable to completely shake off such guidance, so he adopted a way of concession to deal with the rightist force in the KMT. As a result, the CPC gave up its leadership of the military, which was an important reason for the failure of the Great Revolution. After the Great Revolution failed, Chinese communists, represented by Mao Zedong, started new explorations of the road for the Chinese Revolution, with the tendency of freeing up the mind and advancing with the times being increasingly prominent. For example, as the party's focus of work was shifted to the countryside, the majority of party members became peasants. Realizing such a new reality of party building, Mao Zedong revised the practice of mainly recruiting workers. Considering the fact that China was still a semi-colonial and semi-feudal society and its regional, political, and economic development was unbalanced, Mao thoroughly analyzed the mistakes of the purely military viewpoint, absolute equalitarianism, disregard of organizational discipline and subjectivism in the party, and creatively raised the solution of carrying out correct political and ideological education among party members to make them acquire proletarian qualities. During this period, Mao found out a crucial principle of party building, giving top priority to ideological education and leadership in ideology. He stressed freeing up the mind, clearly opposed book worship, and opposed the mysticism of Marxism. However, such a view of emancipating the mind was not accepted by the party's top leader, who held leftist views, and Mao was criticized as holding narrow empiricism and a rich peasant line. After the Zunyi Conference, Mao Zedong was elected as a member of the Standing Committee of the CPC Central Committee, which was a major turning point in the history of the party. After the War of Resistance against Japan broke out, the CPC continued to address various complicated problems with an attitude of freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. In order to increase the entire party's understanding of Marxist theories and achieve victory in the War of Resistance against Japan as early as possible, the CPC Central Committee decided to launch a study campaign in Yan'an. During the study campaign, Mao continued stressing the need of emancipating the mind and advancing with the times. He said a Marxist would not be qualified if he didn't know how to understand the world through reforming the world, and then reform the world through understanding the world. A Chinese Marxist would not be qualified if he didn't know how to understand China through reforming China, and then reform China through understanding China. With the study campaign in Yan'an, the CPC further freed up its mind and set up a correct ideological line. Mao Zedong's stress on freeing up the mind was further developed after the founding of the PRC in 1949. To realize the second integration of Marxism-Leninism with Chinese conditions, Mao Zedong said that party members must read classic works of Marxism and observe its basic principles. But communist parties in all countries must create new theories, write new books, and nurture their own theorists to serve their political missions. He stressed that since China had entered the socialist era, with many new problems emerging, it wouldn't work by just relying on works such as On Practice and On Contradiction, but not writing new works and establishing new theories. Marxism must be constantly developed with the development of practice. Being at a standstill, Marxism would lose its vitality. These comments effectively guided the socialist construction under historic conditions at that time. After the reform and opening up, the Central Collective Leadership, with Deng Xiaoping at the core, while implementing the policy of reform and opening up and carrying out a socialist modernization drive, continued to stress freeing up the mind and advancing with the times, and established the theory of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. Deng said, "When everything has to be done by the book, when thinking turns rigid and blind faith is the fashion, it is impossible for a party or a nation to make progress. Its life will cease, and that party or nation will perish. Our modernization program and socialist cause will be doomed if we don't make reforms now." None of the works of Karl Marx or of Lenin offers a guide for building socialism in China, and conditions differ from one country to another, each having its own unique experience. So we have to think for ourselves. Anyone who fails to carry Marxism forward with new thinking and a new viewpoint is not a true Marxist. A true Marxist-Leninist must understand, carry on, and develop Marxism-Leninism in light of the current situation. Observing the world with a broad horizon of emancipating the mind and advancing with the times, Deng Xiaoping has pushed the party's understanding of Marxism-Leninism to a new height, based on summarizing the historical experience of socialist construction. After the fourth plenary session of the 13th Central Committee, the Central Collective Leadership, with Jiang Zemin at the core, adhered to emancipating the mind and advancing with the times, constantly summarizing practical experience and advanced theoretical innovation. Jiang said,
"Innovation sustains the progress of a nation. It is an inexhaustible motive force for the prosperity of a country and the source of the eternal vitality of a political party. The CPC must free ourselves on our own from outdated notions, practices, and systems, from the erroneous and dogmatic interpretations of Marxism, and from the shackles of subjectivism and metaphysics. We should adopt a scientific approach and make bold explorations in order that we think and act more in line with the objective reality, China's conditions in the primary stage of socialism, and the development of the times."
Outlining the requirements of the times, he put forward the important thought of the three represents, adding characteristics of the times to the nature, guiding thoughts and tasks of the party, and then deepening the party's understanding of socialism with Chinese characteristics. After the 16th CPC National Congress, the party Central Committee, with Chuntao as General Secretary, continued to emancipate the mind and advance with the times, making the party's work more time-sensitive and more creative. Considering the changes in domestic and international conditions, the CPC Central Committee set forth many important strategic thoughts, such as improving the vanguard nature and governing capability in supervising the party's conduct and enforcing party discipline. This strategic thought, with the purpose of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects and ushering in a new stage of socialism with Chinese characteristics, adheres to emancipating the mind and advancing with the times. The important theoretical innovations it has made for better strengthening party building and advancing economic and social development are of great political and theoretical significance. The new central leadership, with Xi Jinping as General Secretary, adhering to freeing up the mind and advancing with the times, promotes the great project that the party must supervise its conduct and enforce strict discipline. In his speech delivered at the opening ceremony of the 2010 spring semester of the Central Party School, Xi said,
"Freeing up the mind is the inherent requirement for seeking truth from facts. Only through freeing up the mind, constantly handling the new conditions and problems, and abandoning outdated mindsets, practices, and systems, can we well understand the ever-changing reality, so that our thoughts conform to the real conditions, and we can better seek truth from facts. Advancing with the times is the prerequisite and inevitable outcome of seeking truth from facts. The reality is changed as time advances. Therefore, adhering to seeking truth from facts must be combined with freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. The party must uphold truth and rectify errors while freeing up the mind and advancing with the times, and make reality the sole criterion guiding our actions."
He stressed that party members and officials should be the most dynamic and most creative group of our society, and they must boldly free their minds and progress with the times, dare to seek high and low for a way to forge ahead, have the willpower to cut paths through mountains and build bridges over rivers, and be indomitable and advance bravely in bringing forth new ideas. The history for the CPC to supervise its conduct and enforce party discipline is a history of following the Marxist theoretical line, adhering to emancipating the mind and advancing with the times, and summarizing experience from the practice of revolution, construction, reform, and people's innovation. The 95 years, of course, of the CPC indicates that Marxism is a theory of constant development, and the integration of Marxism with Chinese conditions is a process of constant progress. Such integration must be carried out in a scientific way, and it needs the courage of freeing up the mind and advancing with the times. Only by doing so can we further adapt Marxism to Chinese conditions. Building a party committed to learning. To strengthen and improve party building, the fourth plenary session of the 17th CPC Central Committee proposed the important strategic task of building a party committed to learning. Building the CPC into a party committed to learning is an important experience for the party to gain victories in the past 95 years, and an important fine tradition and political advantage of the party. Both history and reality prove that only by valuing learning and being good at learning can the CPC remain at the forefront of the times and fulfill the historic mission of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects. Reviewing the history, we will know that the success of a person is a result of constant learning and development of both physical and intellectual strength. To leading officials of the party, learning is the basis to improve their personal qualities, the source of improving their capability, and the foundation to get on in the world. Leading officials of the party can improve themselves only by spending more time in learning. For example, Mao Zedong kept reading all his life. He often said one must broaden his knowledge, and he encouraged the staff working for him to do so, whether they were secretaries, guards, or medical workers. Zhou Enlai had been praised for being hard-working and well-read when he was in middle school. He read not only books written by Chinese scholars such as Gu Yanwu and Wang Fuji, but also translated works such as The Social Contract by Rousseau, The Spirit of Laws by Montesquieu, and Evolution and Ethics by Huxley. With a broad knowledge, an active mind, and a wide vision, he had a deep understanding of the issue of saving the country and the people, and was fully prepared in culture and thought to accept Marxism. During his study in Japan at the end of the 1910s, Zhou read many progressive publications, such as 10 Days That Shook the World by John Reed on the October Revolution in Russia, and works by Japanese writers on Marxism and socialism. Deng Xiaoping had a fondness for learning and reading. Books he read included classic works of Marxism, Leninism, Chinese literature and history, Chinese drama, foreign literature and history, recollections and biographies. These books accompanied him most of his life. Ku Bai, one of the party's leaders in the early period, was earnest for learning. His classmate in Russian language school, Shen Ying, recalled in 1918 that Q had his independent opinions on every question he discussed, and even on major events covered by newspapers several days before he could retell them completely. Such a careful attitude toward learning was also seen in other leaders of the CPC, such as Wang Ruofei, Yun Daiying, and Wu Yuzhang. In the winter of 1919, when Wang studied in France, he made a daily timetable for work and reading in order to spare more time in learning, getting up coffee and walking to the factory after 6:30 a.m. It took 15 minutes to walk to the factory, working 7 to 11:30 a.m., having lunch 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., reading 12:30 to 1 p.m., walking to the factory at 1 p.m., working 1:30 to 5 p.m., having dinner 5:30 to 6 p.m., read, ing 6:30 to 9 p.m., and going to sleep at 9:30 p.m. On the New Year's Day of 1919, Yan Daiying, who was newly appointed as Dean of Studies of a middle school, sent some special New Year cards to his friends. Besides Happy New Year, he also wrote some special sentences on study and suggested that his friends write diaries on study beginning January 1st. In 1959, 81-year-old Wu Yuzhang wrote in his own hand a motto. He said he had lofty aspirations but limited capability. He loved learning but still didn't do well in it. He was still slow in understanding. All these were because he didn't study intensively enough. Although he was already 81 years old, he hoped to have enough time to make up for these mistakes. Wu was saturated with knowledge, but he still loved learning and was never satisfied, determined to study harder even when he was 81 years old. These examples of CPC leaders indicate that one of the important ways for the party to improve itself is for members to spend most of their spare time learning and reading. Devoted to reading and cherishing the opportunities to study, party members and leaders have gained a wide range of knowledge. Since party members and officials realized the urgency and achieved a sense of responsibility of enhancing study, the CPC Central Committee regarded learning as the key to success in different periods of the party's history and emphasized securing the party's leadership role and fulfilling its historic mission through learning. During the Democratic Revolution, Mao Zedong raised famous views of no investigation, no right to speak. To investigate a problem is to solve it. Victory in China's revolutionary struggle will depend on the Chinese comrades understanding Chinese conditions, etc. In Yan'an, as the revolution progressed rapidly, Mao keenly realized that among party members there was a kind of panic, neither economic panic nor political panic, but a capability panic. To overcome such panic, he suggested that the party must be run like a big school and that a learning competition be launched in the entire party. A Marxism learning campaign covering all the party members hence started. During this campaign, Mao delivered a speech at a mobilization meeting for on-job training in Yan'an, saying that all members of the CPC must keep learning throughout their lives. To build a big party, officials must keep learning. Study should be the focus of our work, and it should be a great need, especially for leading officials, because without study, they would be unable to lead the work, improve the work, and build a big party. Such emphasis on learning enhanced the unity of the party and improved the ability of party members and officials in addressing theoretical and practical problems, laying solid foundations for the party to seize state power. On the eve of nationwide victory in the Chinese Revolution, at the second plenary session of the 7th CPC Central Committee, held in March 1949, Mao Zedong emphasized,
"The comrades must be taught to remain modest, prudent, and free from arrogance and rashness in their style of work. The comrades must be taught to preserve the style of plain living and hard struggle."
He also listed 12 works on Marxism-Leninism that party members and officials must learn to improve their understanding of the theory of Marxism-Leninism. After the PRC was founded in 1949, the work focus of the CPC changed, and its status was also shifted from a revolutionary party to being a party in power. In front of such changes, Mao Zedong said,
"The serious task of economic construction lies before us. We shall soon put aside some of the things we know well and be compelled to do things we don't know well. We must learn what we do not know. We must learn to do economic work from all who know how, no matter who they are. We must esteem them as teachers, learning from them respectfully and conscientiously."
He stressed that the tasks in front of the party were very arduous and the party's experience was inadequate, so we must be good at learning. In an atmosphere of being modest and eager to learn, the CPC made timely and correct judgments on the conditions and adopted correct policies and measures to restore the national economy, completing the socialist transformation and establishing a socialist system. Since the reform and opening up, learning has become a compulsory course for party members and officials when the party faces new circumstances and new tasks. In leading the reform, Deng Xiaoping required all party members and officials to start learning again. He said,
"We must admit that we have not learned well enough in the subsequent years. Expending our main efforts on political campaigns, we did not master the skills needed to build our country. Our socialist construction failed to progress satisfactorily, and we experienced grave setbacks politically. Now that our task is to achieve modernization, our lack of the necessary knowledge is even more obvious, so the whole party must start learning again. The four modernizations represent a great and profound revolution in which we are moving forward by resolving one new contradiction after another. Therefore, all party comrades must learn well and always keep on learning."
Faced with huge gaps of economic strengths between China and foreign countries, Deng made great efforts to encourage party members and officials to study. He said,
"We need to create an atmosphere which will encourage study, one conducive to theoretical study. Encouraging study and practice is also a part of our party's work style and one of our party's fine traditions."
Through study, the CPC resumed the theoretical line of seeking truth from facts, established the guideline of focusing on economic development, and found the path of building socialism with Chinese characteristics. How to advance the building of a party committed to learning became a focus of the CPC Central Committee after the fourth plenary session of the 13th CPC Central Committee. Jiang Zemin exhorted the entire party that the issue of study concerned the progress of party officials and the success of the country, the nation, and the socialist modernization. He said that at the crucial moment of major historic transition, new conflicts, new problems, new circumstances, new knowledge, and new experience appeared one after another. So party members and officials must pay more attention to study. Based on a deep understanding of the party's historic mission, Jiang said in his report to the 15th CPC National Congress,
"The entire party should attach great importance to study, be adept at studying, and usher in a new upsurge in studying Marxism-Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, and particularly Deng Xiaoping theory."
During the following 3 Emphases education campaign, emphasis on study was given top priority. After the 16th CPC National Congress, Chuntao, while leading the socialist modernization drive, was committed to improving the system of study for party members and officials, and established a system of collective study on a regular basis for members of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee. He said the party must, through solid study, transform the effects of theoretical guidance to the firm determination of holding high the great banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics, to the lofty ideal of communism and the firm belief in the common ideal of socialism with Chinese characteristics, to the ability of analyzing and solving problems with theories, to the capability of promoting development in a scientific way and social harmony, to the sincere commitment to sharing weal and woe with the people, and to the individual will to strengthen their sense of party awareness and theoretical consciousness. Guided by this idea, the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee held the first collective study session on December 26, 2002. Chairing this study session, Hu said the CPC has always worked to ensure all its members acquire further knowledge and regarded it as a strategic task concerning the development of the party. Not studying, not persevering in study, and not studying hard, we would surely be behind the times and unable to assume the high responsibilities on us. Therefore, the party must strengthen study and try to improve itself with the rich knowledge created by human society. This fully demonstrates the sense of historic mission of the CPC Central Committee to pay attention to study and be good at study. The CPC Central Committee kept focusing on building a party committed to learning around the 18th CPC National Congress. In his speech to the opening ceremony of the 2012 autumn semester of the Central Party School on September 1, 2012, Xi Jinping said earnestly that to leading officials, learning is not merely a matter concerning their personal interests, but a matter concerning the advancement of the party and the country's work, the development of a socialist modernization drive, and the consolidation of the party's position as a ruling party. In modern times, knowledge is becoming outdated at an ever-increasing pace, with a whole range of new know-how, new information, and new states of affairs cascading over us. If leading officials slacken even a little in study, they are likely to fall behind. It is precisely from this strategic perspective that the 18th Party National Congress highlighted the important task of building the party into a learning, service-oriented, and innovative Marxist governing party. Explaining this important decision, Xi Jinping said,
"We must study in order to improve our ability to work in a more scientific way, with greater foresight and initiative, and to keep up with the times, follow the law of development, and be innovative in our leadership and policy making. We must study in order to avoid bewilderment resulting from inadequate knowledge, blindness resulting from insensibility, and chaos resulting from ignorance. We must also study in order to overcome professional deficiencies, the dread of incompetence, and outdated capabilities."
These include both expectations of party members and officials to strengthen study, and the following conclusion: it is study that makes the party achieve present success, and it is also study that will make the party progress further. The key to the CPC's success in different periods of revolution, socialist construction, and reform is that it has always worked to ensure its members acquire further knowledge, and it realized the significance of building a party committed to learning. At every major turning point, the CPC has called upon its members to study harder to increase the party's creativity, cohesiveness, and professional capabilities, and generate further intellectual and human resources support for the victory. During the process of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects, party members and officials must continue study and be good at study. Continue to adapt Marxism to China's conditions in keeping up with the times and increase its appeal to the people amidst constantly learning and utilizing Marxism, so that Marxism can take root in the Chinese Revolution, socialist construction, and reform. Guide the new practices and help blaze a correct path, keeping with the features of Chinese Revolution, socialist construction, and reform. End of Chapter 4.